You are tuned in to a Fireside chat with Zany Mystic. Join us now on another exciting metaphysical journey. Relax, tune in, drop out, and take a seat by the fire as we explore new realms and possibilities. This is Magenta Pixie. You can find me at magentapixie.weebly.com. But now, here is Zany Mystic and guest. Enjoy the show.
Greetings, and welcome to a Fireside Chat with Zany Mystic. I'm your host, Lance White. Tonight, my guest is Echan Deravy. Echan is a lifelong pilgrim from Scotland who passed through 75 countries before settling in Japan. There, he established himself as an author and public speaker on metaphysics, spirituality, and remote viewing. He is a vital link between Japanese culture and the West, acting as interpreter for figures such as Graham Hancock, and leader of many journeys with Japanese to sacred sites around the planet. He currently has over a dozen books in print in Japanese and a series of DVD talks recorded over the last 6 years, all also in Japanese. His key concern is conscious evolution. He is the director and guide for an outstanding spiritual video, which we'll be talking about tonight, and it's called EARTH PILGRIMS. And you can find out more about EARTH PILGRIMS on that name, www.earthpilgrims.com. And you can also find Echan at www.echan.jp. So let's welcome him to the show now. Hi, Echan. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Lance, am I coming through loud and clear?
Yes, you're perfect for me. Thank you. Before we start, I just wanted to tell the listeners that I downloaded your video to watch today so that I would know what I'm talking about. I was so intrigued by the preview, the trailer on the video site that I watch it, and it is an absolutely magnificent spiritual journey, and I give it high praise. Everybody should be watching this video, buying it, and showing it to their friends because it is so uplifting and so inspiring. I just wanted to share that with you before we get started.
Well, I'm very pleased to hear that, Lance, because actually until now the Japanese version has been my focus, and the film is largely unknown in the West. So I feel very privileged to have this opportunity to talk with you tonight so that perhaps we can have a more wider audience, let's say, have a look at it.
Absolutely. You know, I've been talking to people that have various cultural backgrounds from North and South Korea and Vietnam and the Asian countries, and we have so many wonderful brothers and sisters around the world, and you just can't help but love the human spirit no matter what form it takes. And I just have high praise for anybody who's acting as a bridge between our various cultures because, you know, I feel like at the root of everything, we're just basically all love. So you're doing some incredible work to bring us together, so thank you.
Well, I feel that it's beginning actually from now with the help of this film, Lance. Most of my time has been spent in Japan bringing information from the West to Japan, but I now feel that it's time for me to share what I have learned and understood from 36 years, pretty much 70% of my life in that culture. There is a lot to share, and Japan really is still an unknown quantity, so it all really starts again now.
Yes, yes. And interestingly enough, there really is no sense that there's any one particular country that you focus on. Maybe you can share a little bit about what the movie is about. And in the beginning of the movie, there's some beautiful poetry by RUMI, one of my favorite Sufi poets and conscious beings. And there also is a marvelous lady who is called the Peace Pilgrim, and she's just so inspirational. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired your film?
The theme of my work in Japan as a writer, public speaker, and I suppose I'm a bit of a rabble-rouser in Japan because I have a strong conviction that we are heading into very troubled times on planet Earth.
Yes.
I think many of us are aware of that, and I've looked at some of your other guests, many of whom I am familiar with. And if there was a common theme to all of what we seem to be discussing, it is surely that we have to evolve very quickly to get through this next stage of our journey on Earth. And the key word is journey. I believe that if there was an attitude that we could embrace that would really help us to get through what's coming and what's happening now, it would be the consciousness, the spirit of a pilgrim. Not necessarily a pilgrim from a specific religious tradition. What I try to do in this film is to enlarge the meaning of the word pilgrim to point us in the direction of all being spiritual pilgrims on an evolutionary journey. So that's really what the movie is about in a nutshell.
Yes, and in fact, there's one of the people who's on the video. You have some wonderful people who speak in the video. It's really a spiritual cast of beautiful souls and heavyweights on the cutting edge. But one of the people is Nassim Haramein, who's a Swiss-born physicist, and there's a section there where he explains about the solar system is a form of a spiral pilgrimage, and there's a video at the same time which shows us visually how the solar system is spiraling and how Earth is actually on its own pilgrimage, and it's just such a beautiful image, and I'd never ever had that thought before.
Well, that is incredibly perceptive, Lance. I'll tell you how that happened. I am now sitting in Nelson, British Columbia, one of the most beautiful locations on the planet that I've traveled all around. And it was 2 years ago here in Nelson, as I was in the initial stages of making the film, I was with my editor who created that footage that you just mentioned of how the solar system is spiraling through the galaxy. His name is Luke Hancock. He's actually Graham Hancock's son. And he came up, he was upstairs in the room that I'm in now, editing the first section, and he said, "You might like this guy." And he handed me 4 DVDs, and it was about 10 hours of Nassim Haramein's lecture.
Wow.
So I spent that evening watching this extraordinary, gifted physicist give a talk about sacred geometry, about the construction of the physical universe, how it's put together from his physicist point of view. And during his presentation, he had an explanation and a very similar sequence showing how the Earth is actually on a journey, the solar system is on a journey, spiraling through the solar system. And at that moment, I said to myself, I want this guy in the film. I'm going to get him in this film.
Yeah.
And, because I needed a scientist. I had other thinkers. I had environmentalists. I had Peace Pilgrim. But I didn't have a physicist. I didn't have a scientist. And all of my work has involved bringing information about consciousness and evolution to people's attention. And, of course, it's important to have people with a good scientific background for the doubting Thomases of the world, let's say. And so I said to Luke Hancock, who at that time was only 22, 23 years old, very gifted young man.
Wow.
I said, do you think you could get me in touch with this man? And 15 minutes later, somehow he got a phone number. And I picked up the phone here in Nelson, BC. I got the time all wrong. And I phoned up Nassim Haramein at 5 o'clock in the morning in Hawaii. And he said to me when I finally met him, I never pick up the phone. Especially at 5 o'clock in the morning from somebody I've never heard of. And he said something that morning just told me to pick it up.
Wow.
And that was it. I got on the phone with him and I said to him very straight, I said, hey, I just watched your DVD, and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a scientist, but, you know, I've done a lot of research. Correct me if I'm wrong, but have you solved Einstein's conundrum about the unified field? Because that's what I think you've done. And he very humbly said, well, could be. And I said, would you be in my film, please? I'll come to Hawaii. And that was it.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
That was it. That's how the film was made, Lance. I knew nothing about making films. I started with a tiny camera and went on a pilgrimage. I literally went on a pilgrimage and thought, it will evolve as a pilgrim movie only if I myself am on a pilgrimage. Otherwise, it won't have the reality of a pilgrimage. And I met the people on the way. Somehow we got the budget together. People like Nassim just said yes. Coleman Barks, who he told me, never answers emails. He's even got it on his website. I will not respond to emails.
Wow.
And I called him right away.
That's amazing. And just so that we have a better, so the audience knows a little bit more. I mean, you know, I've got a great listening audience, and we're wonderfully awake and aware. But, you know, I didn't really look at the pilgrimage quite the same way before I saw the film and after. So maybe you could share a little bit about what the essence of being a pilgrim is. Okay. Traditionally, the term pilgrim would normally refer to a man or a woman who, from within their own spiritual or religious tradition, consciously goes on a journey to visit sacred places, whether they be temples or shrines or mosques or actual physical locations in nature, holy mountains, holy places, with the intention, by going through a rather arduous journey, with the intention of reflecting on their lives, meditating on themselves, living a life of almost complete insecurity, and placing their complete faith and trust in a higher order, whether that be Buddha or Christ or Muhammad or shamanic ancestors. A pilgrim is, as the great Peace Pilgrim said in our film, a pilgrim is a wanderer with a purpose, not just idly wandering around for adventure or thrills, but having a specific purpose. And I would define that purpose as purification, self-purification. Beautiful. Beautiful. And it feels as if we're in that process right now. And it's so interesting that many New Age and spiritual leaders talk about the earth evolving and ascending or moving into her own higher form of consciousness, and that this is a very remarkable period that we're in. And it's so difficult to remember this because it feels like, or looks like, it's all dark and getting darker. But from your film, many of your guests on the video, like Satish Kumar, so eloquently speaks about this being a wonderful turning point. Yes. Satish Kumar, for our listeners' recollection, let's say, because I'm sure many are familiar with him, was chosen because he really is a walk your talk pilgrim.